Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet, Pat Chat Edition. I'm Violet.
And I'm Pat.
We're bringing you more viewer comments
Hmm.
this week. So Patrick had some more comments that he found very interesting. So we're going to talk about them again today.
Yeah.
So what do you
Okay.
have for me? What?
Let's go with comments. A few comments on our 10 keto myths video that we made a few weeks ago. So the first one from an angel magnet. Love the discussion. Learned so much. Thank you. You're welcome. One question about the keto flu. I thought the electrolyte imbalance was the issue. In fact, never even thought that about being carb withdrawal. Thanks for that. By the way, yeah, it was pretty yucky at the beginning of keto and one meal a day. Oh yes, I'm a wellness warrior. So yeah, maybe like just like keto flu. Um,
Okay, so
we'll comment about that and how long will this last? Is it like the end of the world?
so it seems like most people have a keto flu for approximately 2 days. That's
Mm-hmm.
the first thing, 2 to 3 days. So the electrolyte imbalance is part of it. And again, as you go through and you learn more and more things. So apparently the electrolyte imbalance causes part of it. However, the part that gets ignored is all the nausea, all
Mm-hmm.
the heating up and like that feeling of like the flu and
Yeah.
those are withdrawal symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Like anybody who well, and you know what? I'm certain that most people doing ketogenic lifestyle have no idea what we're talking about because sugar is the only thing you've ever been addicted to.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't know this, but like when you look up the symptoms for withdrawal from cocaine, withdrawal from marijuana less, but the withdrawal from alcohol, um, you see
They're
these
the same.
symptoms. The symptoms are the same. So you are going through withdrawal. However, the thing that I find interesting is that there's certain elements, like the headachy part, the electrolytes really does seem to
Mm-hmm.
help with that. So there's some parts of it that seems to be that electrolyte imbalance that happens while you're transitioning, but we can't get away from the fact that you're engaging a withdrawal
Yeah.
situation.
Is there a
Now,
way to ease your way into the keto flu? Actually, what do you
so
recommend
it
to ease?
what I find interesting is that some people actually seem to have very little symptoms. But when you talk to those people, what I do find interesting, because I've had a few different clients who told me they didn't really seem to have that big. But they were people who already didn't really eat much like junk food.
Okay.
So although they did eat a lot of like they would eat rice, pasta, like they did eat those things, but the junk food. So I'm wondering
Mm.
now, like, is there something specific about refined
Mm.
carbohydrates and that withdrawal that you end up living? But I'm not 100% sure. All I do know is some people they seem to go do really well. There's a lot of people also that have a lot of success with like slowly tapering down.
Mm.
The thing about that though, you need to know your personality. To do that, you really would need to be one of those people that could withstand constant cravings over long
Mm.
periods of time. Because when you eat slow down, so when you kind of ease into keto, what happens is that you end up instead of getting through all your cravings in like well the bulk I'll say the bulk of your cravings within the first 5 days and then by 2 weeks being completely craving free, you can end up being in that situation for months where you kind of want to eat it, kind of want to eat it, like you kind of, like
Mm.
for months because you're slowly taking one food out, taking another
Mm.
food out, taking, right? But I mean, if your personality allows for that, because some people they do, like some people can really, they can manage that
Mm.
idea because they're also feeling better.
Mhm.
So if you have one of those personalities, I say go for it. Do it in the way that's going to be easiest for you.
Okay, Cindy Sue. I, Dr. Valiant, Dr. Darren Schmidt also says that high protein won't kick you out of ketosis. He is on keto carnivore. Very interesting theory he has. So I did find that comment interesting because we know if we overeat protein, there's that gluconeogenesis can happen. So yeah. Does that mean that a carnivore like a dieter, carnivore eater is not in ketosis?
No, that doesn't mean that. So the thing that we need to be careful about is exactly the definition. If I overeat anything,
Hmm.
I'm going to be in trouble. So of course, if you overeat protein, yes, you're going to get kicked out of ketosis. That's just normal. If I overeat it, the thing is, if I eat a normal amount of protein for me, I will not be kicked out of ketosis. My body will use it for what it's meant to be used
Mhm.
for. Your body does not use protein for energy if it doesn't have to. Like protein, like the conversion from protein to energy is not an efficient way of fueling the body, right? And I like to like compare it to, you really wouldn't go and like buy wood for your fireplace and then when it's time to actually heat your house, burn the kitchen table, right? Like it wouldn't make sense. That's wasting a kitchen table, right? And buying back the kitchen table, much more expensive than buying back some wood, right? So it's the same kind of idea. When you eat protein, those are building blocks to build your body to replace things that need to be replaced, and your body isn't looking to use those for energy. So but it will convert protein to energy if it needed to. So for example, if you're doing a carnivore lifestyle, so therefore you're not eating any carbs, whenever you do need some carbs, your
For
body
the
is going to
brain.
go in and take what it needs. And so therefore,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to, of course, sometimes protein is going to be grabbed for that process.
So
It's
basically,
normal.
if you have a diet of 2,000 calories per day and you need your 2,000 calories out of meat mostly, you're going to be fine. If you eat 3,000 calories of meat, then
I guess
you
you're using the
might
number
end up.
just to show a number, but yeah,
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
if you
yeah,
eat an
yeah.
excess amount of energy, yes, your body
Right.
will convert it.
Store.
But
Yeah,
you know what
you're
the
going
other
to
thing
store.
is to keep in mind, and actually just you saying that just made me
Mm-hmm.
think about something else. So don't forget that even me, I eat carbs, right? I do keto. My body will still do some level of gluconeogenesis, right? Because there are times when I'm not eating. Like I do one meal a day.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times when I'm not eating, and let's say I worked out this morning. So my one meal a day is usually at around 8 o'clock, and I worked out this morning. Well, my glycogen stores are going to be lower. So what's going
Mm-hmm.
to happen? My body's going to replace that,
Mm.
right? So there are times when your body just naturally does it as well. So
Yeah.
I I think that sometimes we get concerned about ideas that we hear when we don't really understand that these are processes that our body does naturally, normally, but your body is not going to do them unnecessarily. If I've got enough carbs in my body to fuel me, you know the scary thing? If I have enough carbs in my body to fuel me and I overeat, my protein is probably going to get stored as fat before before it's going to get, like, you know what I mean? Like your body's going to put it away
Mm.
because you didn't need it.
Yeah.
So, you know, but it's an
Mm.
interesting question.
Yeah. Jay Shister. I've stopped draining the fat off when I cook hamburgers, and wow, it tasted good. And yeah, that's right. That's how
Yeah.
you get more fat in your diet.
Yeah.
Basically, you prefer the fatty part of the
I
meats.
remember when I used to grill burgers and I used to like squeeze on them to make sure
Just to
the
make
fat
sure
came
that
out.
little,
Don't do that anymore
yeah,
either. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's
Obviously,
so.
the animal fats are going to be healthier for you. So we're taking the assumption that you're buying the best quality meat that you can afford.
Mm-hmm.
So those animal fats is good for you to eat.
Yeah,
And it's, you
totally.
know what? It's already there.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
easy, right? Than
yeah.
having to add extra fat.
Yeah. So the choices are easy. Like even when you're at the grocery store, like you pick up the like if you eat beef, like the one that has more like white lines in, and they're usually much better than the lean parts. Definitely. Okay. Comments on our video about the keto starter kit. So
Okay.
all the accessories and stuff like what your essentials for going keto. That was an interesting video. I was very from Cindy Sue again. Thanks, Cindy. I was very tempted to buy a ketone measuring tool. I felt I will be okay if I did. If I did, I felt I'll be obsessed with the number, so I didn't purchase one. Yeah, do we need like the ketone measuring tools? Actually, we even in Canada, us I don't know if they are allowed. I didn't find one in any pharmacy or online, so
The,
probably like Health Canada didn't approve them
but the thing
yet.
about keto measuring tools, and you can, there's the breath one that you can blow
Hmm.
into. There's the sticks that you pee onto, and then there's the blood.
The blood, yeah.
So the thing that I find unfortunate is that it seems to be a way to get money out of us.
Yeah.
Because, well, first of all, the ones that you pee on, what and the one that you blow into. So both of those, you're measuring the excess. So when my body first starts using ketones for fuel, it's not efficient. So there's excess. And of course, you pee them out, you breathe them out, right? It's a normal process. So when we can actually see them in our urine. But here's the thing. Um, After a few months of doing keto, you stop having excess. Your body becomes efficient at using them. So then I see people that are like, why isn't it turning
Mm.
the color? And like they're getting all obsessed with that. And it's like, it's not turning the color because it doesn't need to. Your body is
Mm-hmm.
efficient. So, it's like when you first learn to cook, you turn on the stove and you usually have it on too high.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? Right? You have to move around and like you're taking the stove, the pan off the stove, on the stove, right? You're trying, right? Like you're wasting heat until eventually you learn to turn the stove
Yeah.
down, right? And then you're not wasting heat, right? You cook more
Mm-hmm.
efficiently and there's less waste. And it's the same kind of thing here. It's like you need to understand that. Now, the one that works consistently is the blood measuring. But the thing is, for me, even with that, like, unless you're specifically trying to keep a number, for example, because of epilepsy or because of maybe Parkinson's or some kind, like unless you're trying to keep a specific number because you have a medical issue that you're really trying to keep your ketones at a certain amount, it's unnecessary, right? The thing that we know and what you should be measuring is how many carbs you're eating,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you keep that number low, chances are you're in ketosis.
So an app on your phone is probably as reliable if you track everything you eat,
If
like
you
in an
track
app.
everything,
If
yeah,
you track everything and like
you're gonna have a
especially
good
the carbs,
idea.
yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
have a good idea.
Yeah, you're gonna have a good idea because you're gonna see that you're under 20. And if you really want to be sure, the further under 20 you are, the more chance you are that
Mm-hmm.
you're in
Yeah.
ketosis. So, but if
And
you've
how long
got
does
the
it take?
money to spend and you like to get the numbers, that's fine
Mm-hmm.
too. But like Cindy's saying, like, can we get a little obsessed with those numbers?
Mm-hmm.
I for sure know I probably could have.
And for the newcomers to the keto world, how long does it take? Like when you start, how long does it take to be in full ketosis? After like how many days of being
I would
under
say
20 or 20 or under?
I would say for most people, within a week, you're
Within a
going to
week,
be
yeah.
there within a week. If you really do 20 or less
Actually,
for
when your
seven
keto
days.
flu pass,
But basically, yeah, basically
basically
when
when
your
your
keto
keto
flu
flu
passes,
pass,
which usually, if I remember, like for myself, it was by the fourth, like going into the fifth day, my keto flu was gone. So it was that 2 days. So I had 2 okay days, 2 horrible days, and then I was fine. So probably around there, I was starting to be in ketosis. And for most people, it's somewhere around the next few days after that, if not that day, right? So, and most people seem to be like day 3 or 4 that they start getting that
mm-hmm.
keto flu-ish type of thing. If you don't end up getting keto flu, because some people don't,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say like within a week, you're probably, if you're eating 20 grams or less. The reason that some people don't find themselves being in ketosis after a week, from my
Mm-hmm.
observations, is because they're not measuring their food
Yeah, and
and they think they're eating 20 grams or less, but when you actually like pull out the
yeah,
scale, weigh the food, and
yeah,
actually do
that's
the
important.
calculations, they're not.
And I would say like do that for a good what, maybe a good 6 months, like
Yeah,
just like I know
because
it's
in
gonna
the
be a bit more work, but like especially at the beginning, like you need to get back to be used to the serving size, how much is 125 grams of something. You need to kind of relearn like to get a better understanding of like what's the serving of what food.
yeah.
So a good 6 months, and after that you can go like I don't measure my food anymore. Like we go
Because you already know how much, like you
intuitively,
know what a
yeah,
service is,
yeah.
serving is.
Servings are, and
But
like we know what we eat. We have our
And the reason I
so.
say 6 months, I actually did it for a year. But the reason I say 6 months to a year is because that's a year's worth of time is really enough time. So 6 months to a year, whatever, you start to know how much to put on the plate,
Hmm.
right? And like I did find for myself that because because I was doing some experimenting with vegetables, and this is my story now, because when I started keto, I didn't eat a lot of different vegetables. So I
Hmm.
was trying different things. So through that year, there were so many different vegetables that I was trying. I always had to be measuring because I really wasn't sure how much
Hmm.
of what I could have of what, and right. So, and I still say that even today, there's sometimes where I'm going to go eat something and I will measure it because I can't remember like how much of that am I allowed to have. So I'll measure it just to be sure because I do eat one meal a day. So like that serving is going to be my carbs for the day. So I often will just verify again with myself quickly. And the other thing that I will say I religiously measure is any snacks. So if I have a nuts at the end of my meal or if I have some cheese with my meal, those things I measure because it's so easy to put 45 grams when you think you're putting 30.
30, yeah.
Like, it's such a small amount, and
Yeah.
so it's so much density of
Mhm.
carbs that those things I measure, because it takes, honestly, it takes 30 seconds to measure some nuts
You
out.
measure, but you don't track anymore. You
Well,
don't use
I
a,
know how much, because
yeah,
I know how much I can have, because
Yeah.
I'm, again, I know what I'm allowed to eat if
Mhm.
the meal that I had, I know how much carbs was in it, so then I know how much nuts I can have.
Yeah.
If I decide to have nuts at the end of that meal, or if I decide to have cheese with that meal, like, so I'll know, like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm having a salad, I can have this much cheese, but then I will say, okay, so that's how much cheese I'm having,
Yeah.
right? And the thing, when you do that for yourself, like I said, it's so easy to think you put 30 grams and you put 40 or 60. It's such a
Yeah.
small difference when you're looking at it with your eyes, but when you weigh it, you see it for sure.
Mhm.
Same thing with when we put our cream in our coffee, we
Yeah.
still measure that too. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
because
we,
like
you
just
know,
a little pour like gets you to a quarter cup,
yeah,
like
and
super
yeah,
easy.
super
Yeah.
easy. Yeah. So, like, it's that,
Yeah.
like, the cream in our coffee, we also
Mhm.
still measure either with a measuring thing or with a weight, like, we measure. So there's certain things that we still measure, and we're like more than a year in, right? And getting close to, yeah,
Yeah.
like getting close to a
More.
year and a half. And it's because it just makes sense, right? Like, if I have the ability to weigh it or measure it, I do. If I'm at Starbucks and I'm getting a coffee and they give me the cream, I'm not weighing it, obviously, right? If that day I go over, it's one day, I don't go to Starbucks every day, right? But, like, if I'm at home and I can, whenever I can do it, I do it, because it's just better for me. As I said in that previous video, I do what's better for me
Yeah.
every time.
Okay, let's go with a comment. Okay, hello, Violet and Pat. Thanks for your input. You're welcome. I do believe that companies, we were talking about like companies that are putting keto on their product, like to sell like keto stuff. Um, so, if I may, educated as you and some others might be, and okay, I need the assurance from a ketone meter that we're in ketosis, like we just talked about that. Take me, for example, I have been very low carb eater, less than 15% daily. I want to get back on that for months, but still find that on some days I test and find my reading shows that I'm not in ketosis. So instead of a 16/8 fast, I have to do a 24 split, so 20 hours fast, 4 hours eating window, to get in ketosis. So the ketone meter helps us. So this is a case where the ketone meters helps that person, but like I'm just like the
So
15% like seems to me that's like over a 2,000 calorie diet. That's a little bit high in grams of carbs.
So here's the thing. There's more than one way to get into ketosis. One way is to eat low carb. Another way is to, you know the answer to that? What's the other way?
Fast.
Fast, exactly. He's not getting into ketosis because of his way of eating. He's pushing himself out of ketosis because of his way of eating. Actually, to get into ketosis, what he should do is lower his 15% is obviously too
50%
much
is
for
too
him.
much. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
I
Like
don't know
if,
what that works out
but
to.
like 2,000 calories, 10% is 20. So 20, 40, like that's 50 grams of carbs. So he might just be a little bit like
He's too high.
he's too high on the
Yeah.
carbs. So you
So,
really need to try to get closer to the 20,
but
like
this
in
is,
that case.
again, like, I think, so 15%, and even at that, I'm not really sure
So
where
like yeah,
15.
5% you should aim at.
Yeah, that's what I'm just
5,
gonna say. I'm not even sure where
5, 7.
15% came from.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, when you do keto, it's 5%. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'm certain I did answer this question
Yeah.
in writing, but my point right now would be to say that when you are doing a ketogenic lifestyle, um, I don't like dealing with percentages, because so there's a bunch of different reasons,
Oh
but
yeah, sure.
I'm gonna give you this one, because this one to me is the most clear. I'm gonna make supper tonight. Whatever I put on my plate, if I were to do the calorie count on it and then take a percentage of that, I'm going to get a number. And tomorrow I'm going to make a plate, and guess what? The calorie count's going to be different. And the next time I'm going to make a plate, and the calorie count's going to be different. And the next time I make a plate, and so what's happening there? Every time I'm doing my percentage, the number is going to be different. Versus, if I say 20 grams of carbs or less, it doesn't matter what I'm making for dinner. I take the amount of carbs that makes me 20 grams of carbs or less. And that's what you should be aiming at. 20 grams of carbs or less.
And that's why calories are not important in that situation, because if you're not spiking your insulin, you're not storing, you're eliminating the extra. So we have a bunch of YouTuber that did like
Oh my God,
they did
4,000 calorie
they
meals,
did like
6,000 calorie meals
experiments on
for
themselves.
months on end, and they didn't gain weight.
Yeah.
Because their their carb intake was
was
extremely low.
extremely low. So yeah,
I really feel like the thing that I try to make sure that people understand is that what makes keto work is taking your carb count low. It's not
Yeah.
about raising fat. It's not about raising protein. Your protein actually should stay the same from
Mhm.
before your whatever diet you were doing before. So if you were eating the right amount of protein,
Mhm.
you should keep eating that right amount of protein. What makes keto work is 20 grams of carbs or less.
So take with a grain of salt every reference, every article that will say you need a calorie deficit. If you do a calorie deficit, you're just gonna starve yourself. Like even on
I
keto,
would,
you can starve yourself.
of course.
If you eat 1,200 calories, if like your body should work with 2,000, then you're gonna starve.
The,
It's not gonna work.
the other thing I'm going to point out, and I feel like, you know what, I'm saying this out loud because I want people to really change the way they think about sugar. So I'm going to say this out loud. If you think about sugar, that 20 grams of carbs or less, so that's what you're aiming at, right? It'd be the same thing as if the doctor says to me, Violet, you're allergic to peanuts. Don't eat them. Does it matter if I eat 1 peanut or 100 peanuts? Right? I'm going to have a reaction. Like there's something about sugar that once you pass that threshold, we have the reaction of no longer being in ketosis. Right? And you have to look at it that way. It's a maximum. Now, again, everybody's different. Yes, you have those people who can do 50 grams of carbs and still be in ketosis. I understand that. That's not my point. My point is that when you think about peanuts, there are some people that they can't eat them, but if they smell them, they're fine. There's other people, if they smell them, they're having a reaction. What's the answer to that? Stay away from nuts, right? So again, everybody's different, but at the end of the day, if something is harming you, it's harming you. And I want people to start thinking about this differently because you wouldn't say to somebody, oh, but it's just 1 peanut when you know they're allergic to nuts, right? Or you wouldn't like put your hands in the nuts and to the, right? Like you're gonna kill this person, right? You wouldn't do it. Why do
I'm
we do it with
allergic.
sugar? Why do we do it with sugar? Right? But we do. Oh, it's just a little bit of oh, it's just a bit of candy. Oh, it's just no. I know I have a reaction to that. Right? You know you have a reaction to that. So
Okay, let's go with a comment about our article on carb loading. We did an article we in our video on carb loading because we didn't we didn't agree with like carb loading and we didn't
okay.
find that it was necessary, healthy.
Okay.
So I was okay. So I'm wondering the same thing as you, Violet. Like the marathon. Okay, how do the marathon runners access their stored fats once the glycogen stores are gone? Seems like carb loading should happen a few hours before a marathon instead of a day or two prior. So like
Well,
there's still like sometimes like your system needs to process the food you eat. So like if you like well we would say it depends, but like probably at least like what, 10 12 maybe.
so here's the thing. Most people when they're talking about carb loading, from what we figured out in that video, was they're talking about a meal that's high in carb.
Yeah, like the
We need to make the
high very like
distinction
pasta,
between,
bread, and stuff
yeah,
like
yeah,
easily accessible,
yeah.
easily processed by your system.
But we need to make the distinction between that, which is still food that your body has to digest before it can get to those things, and like drinking something that's a bit faster absorbed, or like those little pouches that they take on the runs that's a bit faster absorbed. But at the end of the day, it still has to pass through your system, right? But the thing is that it's easier for that to pass because there's not much to it, right? Your body doesn't have as much to break down. So that's part one. But the other thing I'll say is that part of the reason that we don't agree, so I don't need to agree with carb loading. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it. But the thing that we try to point out that doesn't make sense is that your body works a certain way. And this again goes back to we can't make food behave differently because we want it to behave differently. Food functions a certain way. If I eat a meal, it has to pass through my system so it has to pass out of my stomach into my intestines, through my intestines, and then out into my body. And that process takes about 4 hours. But then my body's going to take that and it's going to convert it to stuff and use it. So usually whatever energy we're using, yes, it did come from the day before. It's just the way it works, right? Your body is kind of always cycling stuff. I don't know that even if they did carb load the day before, the problem is that when you deplete that 2,000 calories in that run, that food that you ate yesterday got stored.
Mhm.
It still needs to get pulled out of storage. So yes, you can access your fat stores. First of all, like every
Mhm.
person can. Um, the only thing is that runners and other athletes who these like long endurance have the risk of hitting the runner's wall, which means that their body needed to access but could not because they're not used to accessing it on a regular basis. There are a lot of runners that force themselves into that situation so their body gets used to doing it.
Mhm.
But you still see them at the end of the race. They're they look dizzy, they look disoriented because at the end of the day there's so many carbs that they eat on a regular basis that their body is not fat adapted. So
Mhm.
it's still pulling that fat out resistantly, right? Because it really wants you to go eat. That's what it's looking for
Mhm.
them to do. Go eat something, right? But your body's also not going to kill itself,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to pull some fat out.
And it's the same situation. I had a fun discussion with my colleague a few weeks ago that, like, in his mind, he had to have like a big carby lunch before, because he's a gym buff. He likes to go to the gym like almost every day's week. But like in his mind, he couldn't go to the gym like on an empty stomach, because in his mind he needed the energy from his meal just like an hour before going to the gym. So we need to we need to break that idea, that because they're two different systems. So
Yeah, they are two different systems, and I
no,
obviously he's not paying attention to the
no,
fact
yeah,
that
the food in your
first of all, I
stomach is
mean,
not generating energy like.
yeah, this minute, and even with that, like that's
Mm,
kind of that's really some kind of interesting thinking because if I just ate it, it's still in my stomach.
yeah.
So you kind of would wonder, actually, what I would say there is he's actually putting himself in a position where he's going to get less of a good workout
Mm-hmm.
because when my body is processing food and now I'm trying to divert energy to muscle building, it's incompatible.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's a lot of doctors talking about this. It's like you want to work out fasted,
Fasted. Totally.
right? Like he's working out on food.
Mm-hmm.
He probably would be so much more
Yeah.
what he wants to be if he was working out fasted
Yeah. Totally.
because again, your body's not going to leave it
Mm-hmm.
sit there. Doesn't make any sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are some really interesting
Mm.
comments. I really like that you guys comment on my videos and gives us an
Yeah.
opportunity to talk to you about things that you've said, which is really cool.
Totally.
If you would like to be in the comments, that we're going to do this. I think we're going to make this
Yeah.
something that
Send
we do more
questions.
often.
Yeah.
So put your questions and ideas in the comment section, and obviously the ones that we find spark a good conversation, we will talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you for watching. I'm going to stop there. So it's ridiculous that I can never remember to say that if you are new here, please consider subscribing. All my wellness warriors, I love that you're here.
Yeah. And
Anyone who
she has a Patreon page too.
and anyone who might want to contribute to the production of some of these videos, I have a Patreon account. It's Patreon/Violet Rivera. You can go there, all the information's there. I want to thank you for watching Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet, Pat Chat Edition.
See you next time.
See you next time.